Okay, welcome back. Before I continue on the peculiarities thing, I was just curious about your Mustafa. I didn't tell the viewers at the beginning that you have actually slept in jail before, and you were once a presidential candidate. And is that where you got your name, Mustafa, from? How did Mustafa happen to you?
The truth is that I've led several movements from when I was 18, passionately believing that we must contribute our own quota to national development.
When you say we, the young?
The young, yeah. I represent a generation, and I'm still very passionately concerned about that generation. And I say that advisedly. Some have said to me it's not about the age.
Yeah.
And that's another debate that I'd love to take the best person on, because I still think that the Americans will say that if you have tried a certain normative over and over again, it is better to go the risks, go the way of daring something new. If perhaps you fail daring something new, it's obvious that you have done so much of the old and you haven't done well. And so history will vindicate you. And then it was Albert Einstein who said that attempting to solve a problem the same way it was created is nothing but foolishness.
So Mustafa.
Then it was when I was detained under Obasanjo's government for some elements of my old movement, the Youth Democratic Movement did, which of course had to do with the NMPC building. Investigations, I was in detention for quite some time, investigations were conducted, and the matter thrown out in court because they found out that I actually did not instruct arson. I took responsibility because I wanted to stop further arson. But interestingly, the Mustafa came because one of the SSS jailers, I was arrested on Christmas Day. My son was just 3 months old, and one morning I woke up in detention and I was feeling very troubled. I called one of the SSS, my jailers, and I said to him, I may have been so strong here, but I just remember that if a woman is breastfeeding and she doesn't know the whereabouts of her husband, it might just affect the mother and the child. Can you reach out to tell my wife that I'm well, tell her that I'm okay? And then he said, well, this is setting Daniel. And Daniel said to me, it's against national security. He won't do that, And then, but I was really troubled. The next morning, I think he told some people that, oh, Chris is not in high spirits today. So a certain Muslim jailer, I don't want to call his full names, came to me the next morning and said, Oga Chris, what's wrong with you? I said, no, I'm just bothered. He said, what is it I should tell him? And I told him. And he said, is that all? I said, yes. I said, okay. But it's difficult because it's against the rule of the service. I said, but whatever you can do. And then the next morning he came to me and called me Mustafa. And I said, what does that mean? He said, the chosen one. And I said, chosen one. He said, Almighty Allah told him to do anything I wanted to do. Now he finally did what I wanted, But
so why did you hold on to the name?
Asked me if I would hold on to the name. And then, interestingly, Christopher means instead of the Messiah, the cross-bearer. And if Mustafa comes along the same line, it's just about the same thing. They're more like synonyms. And then I remember that the young man said to me, if I will take the name, Allah will bless me. And it's always been about my passion for change, my passion for a new Nigeria. It connects with my brothers up north who essentially understand that our destinies are tied together.
So why did you run for presidency in 2011?
2011.
You were barely 40.
Yeah, I was just, when I was filling the form, I was going to be 40 in 3 weeks. And so constitutionally, I was 40 before the election, so I could run. Now, why I did was because I found out that my generation had predominantly accepted PAs, SAs, and all kinds of aids as their lot in our enterprise. And I remember when I was growing up, our present president then in 1984 said that the youths, the young, were the leaders of tomorrow. And at 40, I didn't consider myself a boy anymore. And
you know why I asked? Because you obviously didn't think you were going to win, though.
That's why, if I shock you, I actually thought that our message could resonate. I give you with every sense of humility. I have the best manifesto of the 19 candidates. And my big brother, Dele Momodu, and a few others will confirm that to you. I presented a manifesto that did resonate. I thought that my young brothers and sisters. I thought that we could connect and take back our country for good. Because for a 40-year-old, that all you have seen, all you have heard, a litany of woes, a jambalaya of discord, an anomy of sorts. Pain defines a trajectory, angst, a daily life, joblessness everywhere. All we could tell was stories of failed leadership. And I thought at that point that we could just say, let's do it.
So it didn't happen.
So for me it was, countrymen, to the bridge, dear friends, let's save our country. And it didn't work out then. And in 2015, I didn't think I could do that. So I decided, of the two major candidates, one preached a message that resonated. He talked about the fight against corruption. He talked about national security. He talked about job creation, tackling unemployment. And the others were still talking about transformation, continuing with what they were doing. And for me, I totally disagreed with those who said that the other regime that was voted out was clueless. They had a clue. The clue was the way to the treasury of the people. The clue was the way to our collective patrimony.
So you went to
So I decided to follow the one that was saying that we would fight corruption, because at the heart of our collective problem as a nation was pervasive and pervading corruption. And that was why I supported Buhari's campaign, and I headed an arm of the campaign, which was the change ambassadors of Nigeria.
So are you one of those biting their fingers now that maybe we're not getting the right kind of change that we require? I just wonder.
You want the truth?
Yes.
The truth is that I have regrets. Not regrets because we voted out Jonathan. Regrets that the Nigerian people expected much more than we're getting. Regrets that we have a team that is with Mr. President that perhaps does not appear to have that much of passion, and we have so much of propaganda and less of performance. Regrets that we have lost 6 million jobs in 2 years. Regrets that our country is more divided now than ever.
Which is the point of the conversation we're having today. That's why I want to go back to the issue of the peculiarities. You did say that the chord, it's a great one, the three-part chord, but it seems to be what's trying to divide us. And that's why when I read what you wrote, you tried to make us understand from what you said at your speech that at the end of the day, our fates are so tied together that whether we like it or not, we've got to solve the problem. It affects not the rich, but the poor. Restructuring.
Restructuring as a word was first used in 1942. And it means to reconfigure, to rebuild, for effective and effectual protocols to make things right. And then, unfortunately, some have become very unfair to the Nigerian people and the Nigerian state. And they're saying that what we need is to restructure mind rather than the structure. But let me say this, that between 1960 and 1966, I wasn't born then, but I read that somewhere in Ibadan, television was first established before any other country in Africa, and indeed France and Northern Ireland. That means that at some point in our history, the Southwest were ahead of even the state of France.